episode, The Prisoner. So, Eric, please tell me a little bit about your thoughts about. Now, before we get into this, I want to warn everyone this is probably going to be a very spoiler filled episode. So, if you haven't watched the last two episodes of The Mandalorian, you're going to want to watch those episodes before you actually watch this episode of The Retro Rokes, because we're going to be talking spoilers all over the place. We're going to be talking rumors. There's all kinds of nonsense that we're going to be getting into tonight. But we're going to start off by talking about Chapter 6, The Prisoner. Please, Eric, tell me a little bit of your initial thoughts on this episode of The Mandalorian.
Well, it was I thought it was a really interesting episode. I know I've criticized the show for the fact that a lot of times the episodes don't seem to be really taking us anywhere as far as what I feel the overarching story of the show is, which is really about Baby Yoda and who Baby Yoda is and what ultimately is sort of the reason that everybody wants Baby Yoda, why he's being chased. What we have in a lot of these episodes is what I would call side quests. I'm a big fan of the video game Fallout, and Fallout ever since Fallout 3, it's a very open-ended world where you get to kind of explore and do what you want, and there is a main story for the game, and then there are side quests, and I very much compare a lot of what's going on in The Mandalorian to side quests, and I think The Prisoner is very much a side quest episode. It doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have a lot in it that's really important for the bigger story of, again, Baby Yoda. Who is he? Why do so many people want him? Why do they want him? We didn't get any answers for that in the Prisoner. But what we did get was some backstory, I think, on the Mandalorian, which is interesting. And for me, it was something that was welcome. I did enjoy seeing him run into some characters apparently that are from his past. And one thing I thought was interesting was just how truly unsavory, untrustworthy, and just kind of overall horrible people these associates of the Mandalorian were. I'm curious, what were your impressions of this motley crew?
Yeah, I was kind of shocked at how just straight up, kind of evil they were, to be honest. I was, because the Mandalorian to me reminds me a lot of times of samurai, and he has a code and he's somewhat honorable. He does what he's got to do.
He's kind of like a Ronin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like a masterless samurai, yeah.
Exactly. But you can tell he kind of has a code. And along those same lines, I could see why he doesn't run around with this group anymore, because they will do anything, for money or to, accomplish their objective. They were really, really ruthless and in some ways I thought, just purely evil.
Yeah.
This is the one episode where normally there's these interesting characters he meets, and then most of these characters, when they met their kind of, well, some of them did their untimely end or whatever, I was rooting for it, because these are not good people, not even remotely, and a lot of the other characters he's met along the way, they do have a code to them. They do seem to be honorable, which we're going to get into that here in a little bit later. But yeah, this is not a good group of people, that's for sure.
Well, you mentioned about their end, and I think the thing that was most shocking to me in this episode actually was that so many of them actually did make it out of the episode alive. I was almost kind of disappointed that the Mandalorian didn't kill him.
Yeah, well, that goes back to the idea that he kind of has some kind of code. He's not going to kill a unconscious enemy, just cause. He's got to have a really good reason. And I felt like he had a good reason, but to him, he didn't think the reason was good enough, and he did leave a lot of them to survive. This is an interesting episode for me because I didn't dislike the episode. There was a lot of things I liked about it, but it's one of those episodes I was kind of like, okay, because this definitely felt like we were kind of marking time. And Bill Burr, who plays one of these mercenary characters, he's an ex-Imperial sharpshooter or sniper or something like that. I forget what they called him. Um, I like him as a comedian. I don't know if I cared for him too much in this particular episode, um, but it was weird to see him playing this kind of a character, because I see him being kind of snarky and opinionated and slightly incendiary in his stand-up routine, but I never really saw him as a villain. So it was kind of weird seeing him as a very unsavory, do anything for money kind of character. So
what's interesting there is, like, my brother, he's familiar with him, and he watched the episode with me, and he was kind of mentioning that he was kind of a little shocked by the casting. I don't know the guy. I've never seen him before. I have no idea who he is. I've never seen his stand-up routine. So for me, I went in completely sort of open-minded, because I don't have anything to bias me one way or the other on his performance.
Right.
And for me, what was more difficult was because I just didn't like the character, it was hard for me to really get into the performance, because I just thought the character sucked. You know what I mean? I just thought he was a sucky human being. There's one part that really kind of irked me in relation to that. There's that part where they first confront the droids that are guarding the prisoners on the prison barge.
Right.
And they get pinned down. They get their asses kicked. And what happens is the Mandalorian is able to outflank the droids and starts taking them out. And if you notice, the other characters, they just kind of like, him in particular, his character's just like, because they're about to help him, and he's like, no, let him go. Let's see what he can do. Right. And so, he beats the droids, and then at the end of it, he has some sort of like a snarky remark, and it's kind of like, okay, come on, this is a little too much, because you guys just almost got your asses kicked, like in the very first encounter with these guys, and then the Mandalorian single-handedly killed all of them.
Right.
And you're still going to be snarky towards them and act like you're badder than him,
Right.
I mean,
right.
At some point, it's kind of like, now he's just being stupid. So he's not just like a bad person and just like kind of a jerk. He's dumb, because if he's not going to give some props to the Mandalorian after he wiped the table with all those droids by himself that they just got pinned down by, that just doesn't make any logical sense, right? So, right. So I think that was one of the problems for me, is like, I mean, I don't think his acting was terrible or anything like that. Like I said, I'm objective about it. I haven't seen him in anything else. I don't have that bias where I know him as a comedian. I don't know him as anything. But I just felt like the character itself there were just no redeeming qualities, he was a very kind of black and white character in terms of he's just a really bad person.
Right.
And not a very good leader. He was supposed to be in charge, and he didn't have any leadership qualities, So that was kind of my problem with that crew in general. I did think it was interesting, like I said. I mean, I like seeing some of the backstory of the Mandalorian, that he has been involved with these very unsavory types. You would think that, being a bounty hunter, be involved with a lot of unsavory types.
Right.
But these guys just didn't have anything redeeming at all. Even the tweaks, right? Or is that what you call them?
Yeah, I think so. I think Twi'leks or whatever they are. Yeah.
And the brother and sister, even they, as brother and sister, had no real loyalty to each other and didn't really give a crap about each other, or at least the guy didn't give a crap about his sister.
Right.
She at least was rescuing him, right?
Right.
But it seemed like he didn't care one way or the other what happened to his sister. So there were basically no redeemable characters in this particular episode, at least on the main ones. I did find it interesting that this is the first time that we got any significant information or a significant appearance of the New Republic. When The Force Awakens was first starting, I was very excited about the prospect of the New Republic. I had read The Heir to the Empire?
Right.
No, it was the Thrawn series. I had read the Thrawn series of books, and I liked a lot of the stuff that was in there about the New Republic, and I was looking forward to what Disney's take was going to be on this. And of course, we didn't get any take on it. They just blew them up before we ever saw them or anything. It's one of my biggest gripes about The Force Awakens, because I'm a big lore guy. I like lore. I like world building. And they literally destroyed this entire system before we even got to see what it was. And so one thing in The Mandalorian, I was kind of looking forward to, hey, we're finally going to see something from the New Republic. And the first thing we see is this square-looking barge, you know? I was like, couldn't have given me something a little bit better for the first time we see something new from the New Republic. Like, it has to just be like a square-looking barge. And then I was really kind of disappointed in the fleet trooper. I was just like, why is he so weak? You know what I mean? These guys won the war, right?
Right.
Why is he so pathetic? Why does he look like this is like the first mission he's ever been on in his life, you know?
Right.
And then on top of that, the Mandalorian mentions when they're first planning this raid, they're first planning this rescue mission. He mentions that he wasn't told initially that this was a Republic ship, and that he didn't want to bring that kind of heat on him, you know? And you find out at the end of the episode what he's talking about, why he doesn't want heat from the New Republic. But, you know, you don't really get that indication with this guy, with the guy that's on the barge, you know, who's theoretically the guy that's in charge, because it seems like he's the only person, living, breathing person that's on this barge. He's in charge of all the droids and everything else, and administering the prisoners. And it was just kind of weak. You know what I mean? I was just kind of like, that's a little disappointing, because, you know, I've been craving something about the New Republic. And that's the first thing we got was a square looking ship, a very uninspired design. And then we get a very, very, very weak fleet trooper that looks like this is his first day on the job. And that was a little disappointing. I will say that the end, I felt a little bit better about the ending, as far as when the X-wing fighter showed up. I did feel like one thing that the Mandalorian does a lot that I don't like is I think they make the characters too contemporary, and I felt that when the X-wing pilots came in, there was just like something missing. It's like I recently watched the original Star Wars, and I was watching the first run on the battle on the Death Star.
Death Star, yeah.
And seeing like that scene of all the pilots checking in, and the way that they act, and the way they talk to each other, and everything. And you and I have talked about this before, and you can totally see how George Lucas based the actions of these pilots on actual real World War II fighter pilots, on the way that they used to talk and things like that, because that's the era he grew up in. That's what he based it on.
Right.
And it seems so much like with JJ, with Brian Johnson, and now with Favre, that they based their pilots on Star Wars. And it's like, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Not for me anyway. For other people, they might not see it. It might not even register for them. But like, there's just something about the way that the pilots were acting that was very, like, not the way pilots act. And but I did like the fact that they came in and blew the hell out of out of that space station, and the bad guys. I hope they got blown up. We didn't get to see them blown up, but I hope they got blown up. I was actually, like I said, I was disappointed the other three didn't die. I thought that was a little cheesy too, especially with the horned guy, because it was like, come on, he got smashed by the door, and then it turns out it was just his horns. I was like, come on, guys, come on, that's a little cheesy. But but still, even with all this criticism, it's not like I hated the show. I actually was very entertained by it. I actually enjoyed watching it. I do think it's very much a side quest. It's very much, you know, it doesn't tie into the bigger narrative, and we see that with the next episode for sure. But I did find it enjoyable. We lost the feed for a second there. I did like seeing him interact with these people from his past, and just to show it also kind of gives you an indication that the Mandalorian has been involved with some very shady activity, because these are not good people.
No, definitely not good people. Cool. Is that good for this episode of The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I think so. I know you mentioned you really didn't have a whole lot to say about this one, so
No, I don't. I mean, my favorite part was when the X-wing showed up. You know, I just when it was fun to see the new Republic come screaming in. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
actually, like, you know, do some business and show that they were strong and that they were in fact in charge of the galaxy. Because we've heard people kind of worried about them, but this is the first time we've actually seen them show up and actually flex their muscle. And you go, okay, well, they are something to be worried about if they get called in.
yeah,
So that I thought that was good. So
yeah. That I did like that. I like that a lot, actually. That was I think I agree with. That's probably my favorite part. That's what I really liked. Oh, and I do want to say I think they had a missed opportunity on the barge when they were kind of showing some of the prisoners. They
mhm.
could have totally thrown in some like EU stuff. You know what I mean? When you talk about fan
Right,
service, that would have been good fan service. Like they could have totally, because you're seeing these characters visually, they could have totally had characters there that were like, significant. Significant to fans in some
right,
way, even if it's like an Easter egg. To me, it was kind of just like a totally blown opportunity because it was like, yeah, these are just like random people. Why even show them? That there's no
right,
significance here. I think they
right.
had a real opportunity to do something there where they could have shown some cool stuff, and I think that was a missed opportunity.
I would have to agree with that.